Welcome to the latest episode of the Shell Report Basketball Edition. I hope everyone was able to enjoy their Christmas and holiday season. I'm Ahmed Gafir, joined once again by John McConnell and Ricky Welch for a holiday episode sponsored by Catalyst Hot Dogs. Catalyst brought the Jersey Dog to the DMV, featuring premium dry-aged black Angus all-beef hot dogs made in Maryland, served with handmade toppings including hot onions, relish, and their signature Texas chili sauce. And don't miss their original garlic knot dogs. Catalyst always offers vegan dogs as well as gluten-free buns because Catalyst has food for everyone. Make sure to find them in CQ Stadium in Section 14 and the Xfinity Center in Section 210. Make sure to tell the people a hot dog is a sandwich. Fellas, basketball edition. Maryland returns to action on Sunday against Old Dominion for 6 p.m. tip-off inside the Xfinity Center in the non-conference finale, and we will take a look at how we got here, look at year one of the Buzz Williams era for Maryland basketball, and it's been a tough sledding so far for Maryland. They enter Sunday's non-conference finale, sitting 6-6 overall, 0-2 in conference play, and 0-5 in quad one games. Competition is set to pick up once the calendar officially turns to January. But as mentioned, the one final tune-up is ahead. Obviously, it's been the season has not gone the way many of us have expected. Obviously, injuries playing a huge part in the results so far. But fellas, what has been maybe your biggest takeaway through the first roughly third of the 2025-26 season? Ricky, let's kick it off with you.
Yep, long time no talk here on the Shell Report for the hoops season. A lot has happened. I think we talked even before they went out to Vegas for that tournament. And I think so far the biggest takeaway just through this first third as the full conference slate is about to set. I know we had the two in December there. Is just not enough talent, I think, right now. And obviously the meshing together is a problem as well. 6-6 on the year. Plenty of blowout losses, especially in Vegas, occurred since the last time we spoke. And of course, the injury to Payne, huge. Now a second injury. And it's just the cohesion of the group is just not really there. And just the talent is just not there. We played some of the best teams in the country already. Look at Michigan. And we hung with them for a while, especially in that first half. But then look up and you lose by 18. So there's really a talent discrepancy there. Jackson Lendenborg, they're unbelievable. Gonzaga, Alabama, these are some of the best teams. You really see how much their offense can really carry them. And Maryland doesn't seem to have those options. You have Dickie Coit every once in a while shooting out of the lights out of the building. And it's great to see, but he's a senior, and as the season slowly starts to slip away, you're going to have to start focusing on the growth and development of these younger players, such as Darius Adams. But I think it's just the offense, and you look at their Ken Palm stats, there's nothing really that pops out. They can hit free throws and they can get to the line still, but I think that could still be heavily weighed from the beginning of the season when they were doing that more often. Yeah, there's not much to really pick at. Even the offensive rebounding isn't where Buzz usually has his standards. So, and the shooting has just mostly been not great at Virginia game. That offense was just not great at all. So I think it's just consistent. They're not talented enough to be consistent on offense and to hang with these big boys that they have been playing. To be fair, they have been playing some great teams, and competition is not going to get much easier in the Big Ten. It looks to be a stacked conference this year. John, what do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I am very worried for January. That is just a gauntlet of a schedule. But my biggest takeaway so far is just kind of what you're saying. For me, offensive identity has yet to be really found. A lot of their buckets that they've been getting, you could see, is in transition ball. That's a sign of sloppy offense, where I mentioned it in the earlier podcast. The sets that they've been running, they haven't really been able to get any good shot looks. I mean, Virginia, some of the shot attempts that they were coming up, and it was just bad. It just looked bad. Their identity, I mean, and then Ricky, you were saying earlier with the chemistry that this team has been having, it hasn't been there. I know Buzz, that was a huge thing that Buzz was emphasizing in the beginning of the year. Oh, we got to stay connected on all levels, and I haven't really seen that yet. There's just a lot of inconsistency on the offensive end. There really isn't too much to say. They've hung in a little bit with some of these teams, but the blowouts just speak louder than these close games. It's nothing really too impressive to see. But again, I kind of expected this going into the season with the turnaround that Buzz had. Nothing, you can't really create and mesh together a great team, especially on the offensive end, in the time that he had. So and that kind of worries me for the future in those concerns, especially with January. That's just going to be an insane lineup. I mean, I think they play, off the top of my head, like 3 or 4 ranked teams again in that month. I could be wrong, but
Yeah, they
they've
have
got some serious competition.
they got January 21st at Illinois, January 24th at Michigan State, and then Feb 1 is home against Purdue.
That
So
stretch is brutal.
that is a pretty
I was just
tough
looking
gauntlet.
at that. That's horrible.
I do think you guys have, I think that, the on-court chemistry, I think that's a valid point. But I again kind of point to just the consistent injuries. I think really just, I mean, how many games has Solomon Washington and Pharrell Payne been available for? How many games has Maryland played already so far this season? So I think that does play a role for Maryland. I also do think that, again, when you kind of look at this team that has been finding itself, and like you said, John, trying to find an identity, playing a team like Gonzaga and Michigan. But against Michigan, Maryland was able to hang in, was leading for a majority of the first half, and then Michigan kind of just really took over there the last 12, 13 minutes there, for, like you said, an eventual 18-point loss in a game that it felt like Maryland was close all game. So I think that's those are valid. I think kind of, Ricky, you'd mentioned with Pharrell Payne being sidelined. What does Maryland without Payne look like? And I think that you kind of saw that against Virginia. You kind of saw some of those cold spurts. John, you mentioned some of those shots, some of the inability to create good shots. I think this is kind of a time for a guy like Darius Adams, who it's kind of that your hopeful alpha dog who can kind of be your number one, especially in that backcourt. Although Diggy Coit is kind of making a strong and comfortable case through the first third of the season as that go-to scorer for Maryland. But trying to get a guy like him comfortable. Obviously, Buzz has been transparent. Darius Adams, he talked about it in preseason as well, that getting to the free throw line is a big part of his game, and getting to the free throw line is a big part of Maryland's offense, which was kind of a red flag right then and there, to be perfectly honest there. But I think what this Maryland team looks like and how they're able to mitigate the absence of Payne in the meantime. Colin Metcalf is obviously not there. He's only, a handful of games where he's played, and it's only been, a minute, 2 minutes here. So obviously, on the outside looking in on the rotation. So your front court depth is severely hindered, but losing your number one option in Payne is a big one, which takes us perfect segue into our next segment. Our biggest concern, obviously, I just drilled into Payne, and figuring out how you're kind of able to mitigate that. And Elijah Saunders, I know he's kind of had a rough start to the first third of the season, really, but kind of puts him as kind of maybe the X factor in Maryland's equation to success in the rest of the way. But fellas, what sticks out to you as the January slate approaches?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly bring up something that you were talking about too with Payne and that Michigan game specifically. I think that first half is kind of what the ceiling of this team could look like, right? So they score 50 in the half. They're hitting shots, mostly the Coit, but you see some other shots. Mile Rice in transition hit a 3. Payne dominating the paint on both ends of the floor, but at the same time, they let up 45 points in that half. I know Michigan's a good team, and this brings you to my concern: is the defense isn't where I'd want it to be for a Buzz Williams styles team, and I think they're trying hard. Forgot to bring that up in my first point. I think they have the heart. I think they want to win. I just don't think the talent is there to back that up every night. So with the defense concerns me. I don't know if it's more of a system thing. I know, especially in the Vegas, it would really jumped out to me on the defensive side of the ball when they played Gonzaga and Bama. They were crashing a lot down low, and they just had easy kickouts to the three-pointer. And then the perimeter defense, there seems to be a lot of open looks for teams. And that's kind of been the most concerning thing for me, too. I know offense as well means I think that's more of a talent and scoring ability lack of thing, roster construction-wise. But defense hasn't really been there as well. Plenty of teams, I know there have been great teams, but scoring 100 triple digits, close to triple digit points, almost a lot there. I know Virginia first half was also maybe a bright spot for the defense in the first half, but not what I expected from the team, especially perimeter defense wise. A lot of open shots for opposing sides.
Yeah, so great. I really agree with that. I would say my biggest concern is second half struggles with them. They have let up. They've lost the second half battle in 5 of the last 6 games, and throughout the season, more than I believe 3 or more times or 4 more times around that, they've given up 56 points in the second half alone. That is just a very crippling sign, and that you can't win the game in the first half. And there's like the Michigan game, for example. Yeah, that they held their own for the first half, and yes, obviously with what happened with Payne and all that. Okay, I'll give you that, but they gave up 56 points in the second half, a game that they had momentum in, and the crowd was alive at Xfinity.
Yeah.
It really just dimmed down after that, and that's deflating for a team and for a defense that they were getting stuff on offense, but nothing on defense, and that goes back to Ricky's perimeter defensive struggles, because they had I don't know how to pronounce his name on Michigan, but he had like 30 against us that game, even though Diggy had 31, I believe, too.
The Axel?
Yeah. Yep. I'm not
London board.
Yeah, he lit us up. But yeah, second half struggles, they really haven't been able to close games out because the gap has been so large going into the waning moments. You can't continue to play mountain ball the whole time and just climb your way back in this game, that you're going to be too tired, especially when it comes to Big Ten play. Teams are going to wear you out in the beginning of the second half, and if you don't have that offensive or defensive ability to come back, it's just going to be a lost cause, and nothing's really going to go your way in that end.
Yeah, you also saw, we haven't talked about the Iowa game too. That just got out of hand, and they buried us more and more into the second half, and that's what's going to happen a lot in this Big Ten. And again, I pulled it up. I was talking about the perimeter defense. Teams are shooting 38% from 3 against us, which is bottom 25 in the whole country, and teams are shooting a lot of threes too. 42.8% of teams' field goal attempts are 3-pointers, which is well above the average. So teams are getting shots and they're hitting shots. It's not a formula of success on that end.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And you had mentioned, just kind of it can't be a, mountain comeback in every game. And we haven't talked about it too much, but I think, ball handling, ball security has really been a huge issue for Maryland. It wasn't an issue against Michigan as much. Granted, they still finished the game with 9 turnovers, single digit, one of 5 games they finished in single digit turnovers this season. But Maryland also has 5 games this season where they have 17 or more turnovers. Stabilizing the backcourt, figuring out that point guard, and I think Diggy Coit, we mentioned him, he's been able to showcase that, he has that quick trigger and he can kind of be a lightning in the bottle on offense at times. But can Maryland kind of limit the miscues? And Buzz Williams talked about it last game. A lot of the turnovers, they're not dead ball giveaways. They're live ball turnovers, whether in transition, whether it's in the half court offense leading the easy points. And Virginia was able to do that. I thought Chance Mallory, he was, hate to say it, don't often say too much nice about Virginia, but he was fun to watch in that game, and he did a really good job disrupting Maryland's backcourt. And again, a lot of the injuries have kind of been on the wing in the front court. Solomon Washington Obviously, being billed as one of the potentially best defenders in the country has not lived up to that just yet. But granted, I know Miles Rice did enter the season, battling some injuries, and was back against Georgetown, then was back out. But again, the backcourt has largely been able to and kind of enjoy a little bit more stability than the rest of the roster. So kind of the lack of efficiency in that backcourt is a pretty glaring concern. And I think that, kind of transitioning into our next segment, I think that's probably for me the number one thing that I kind of want to see, is Maryland kind of are they able to limit those turnovers in against Old Dominion with Oregon and Indiana looming large coming up like we said, once the calendar turns to January. And I don't know that necessarily Maryland can go in to Sunday's game with necessarily something to prove, but I do think it's something that it's kind of a chip on Maryland's shoulder where you need to limit that in order to maximize your chance at wins and what's expected to be a tough season.
Yeah, just for this game coming up on Sunday, the short answer, can they prove anything to me, is probably no. I mean, I've kind of just more looking at, there's still going to be a talent gap. Old Dominion's not great. They've handled business for the most part. And I know it got a little testy there with Mount St. Mary's back in November, but they've mostly proven it against these teams, and I expect them to win. But then I'm more looking forward to the stretch after. We talked about that stretch with Purdue, Michigan State towards the back end of January into February. But in the middle, there is some winnable games, and there's Oregon coming up the week from now, week from today, and then you also get Indiana at home, and then you swing out to the West Coast, and you get Penn State before you get that 3-game gauntlet. So I think it's time, especially there's a lot of conference season left to play, so there's still stuff to play for. Majority of the season left in that regard, but a lot of about buzz is roster retention, and there's a lot of young pieces still on this team, and that's what I'm going to be keying in on for these for the most of the conference schedules. The more growth of, especially Darius Adams, I think he's probably the key for that scenario for going forward to next year. Payne's out with more of an injury as well, and that's a senior. So I'm looking forward to the growth of that. You saw a little from George Turchin in that Michigan game, probably his best game. He got the start as well, which was interesting, and Andre Mills as well. And even Miles Rice, he's been a little underwhelming, I think, so far. I know the injury early on, but he's someone who still has eligibility left, and buzz with roster retention, it's possible he comes back. So I think it's looking at the guys who have eligibility, looking through their growth through the conference schedule, which I'm looking forward to most for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Ricky, I agree with you. There's nothing really that Maryland can really prove going into ODU. I will say I'm excited to see Mike Jones and CSR again, despite a lot of fans not being able to say the same for CSR. I know, but I am excited to see him again. But nothing really too much that they can prove, just really some quick technicality, like bench growth, if anything. Because we talked about earlier, offense is really pain, and you said, with Diggy, lightning in a bottle. If they could somehow just get confidence in these other guys like Elijah, or Elijah, I would like to see his confidence grow. And if you can have a game where he can play, good sound quality basketball against Old Dominion, I mean, this would be the time to do it. They're under 500 in the Sun Belt. They haven't won a road game yet. There's nothing really too crazy to look at with this one. If anything, I don't see that this team is putting that much focus into ODU, and they're really just having this as a tune-up game, more of a get-back game before they get into the new calendar year against, is it Oregon, their first game?
Yeah, Oregon and Indiana.
Yeah, so I mean, this is really just, they'll probably experiment with some set plays that they can. I'm assuming they'll be able to run those pretty smoothly, but I'm not expecting anything too crazy. This should be a game where they should handle business and really just start to get confidence in contribution from their depth, and really get them to start to show, because maybe that can open up more versatility when come conference play.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. And, get back game, I think it's, really confidence builder, a chance to really kind of dial in on defense, kind of be able to own the glass. And like you said, a chance to own the glass against CSR. Obviously, Mike Jones, former Maryland assistant, coming in as ODU's head coach. ODU also has Zach Wiggins, the younger brother of Maryland star, current Oklahoma City guard wing, Aaron Wiggins. So couple familiar connections, but like you said, I think this is kind of a chance for Maryland to really kind of, just gain that confidence, kind of get some consistency. And I think for the first time, even, maybe it being quote unquote a lesser opponent, be able to play 40 minutes. I think that's something that Maryland has kind of struggled with this season. And I think kind of being able to control the game from beginning to end is kind of the exact type of confidence builder that Maryland will look to take into January. And like we said, for Al Payne, all eyes on when he returns. We'll see if he's able to return at some point in January. It does sound like he should be expected back at some point, but like we said, tip off is on Sunday at 6 p.m. against Old Dominion with a daunting Big Ten slate ahead. You got Oregon, Indiana at home, then you got a West Coast trip at UCLA, at USC. Then you head back to College Park to host Penn State on January 18th. So it will be interesting. Maryland now at 6-6 overall, looking for their first Big Ten win as they look to take care of business this Sunday, as mentioned, against ODU. Make sure you stay locked in over on Inside the Black and Gold for all your latest news through the basketball season, while football's off season and recruiting is set to pick up once the calendar officially turns to 2022.